to the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What is up, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Edition, Week 16. With me, as always, is fine citizen and a little under the weather, but a little better than last week, Mr. Jacob Workman. Jake, how's it going, man?
Well, the Lions are 10-4. I don't think I've ever been able to say that in my life. I think at this point I'm willing to take on all of the Ebola in the world to see the Lions win the Super Bowl. So give me all the sickness if this is what it's going to result in. So so far so good. We didn't quite get the playoff spot clinched because Philly lost last night, but with the Philly loss, that opens the door for us back into the 1 seed possibility. So not necessarily a bad thing because we're pretty much locked into the playoffs anyway. So pretty happy right now with the way things are going.
Yeah, the NFC playoff picture has become pretty scrambled here the past couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about that here just in a second. But especially with this Baltimore game coming up in San Francisco, if Baltimore manages to find a way to win that game, man, it's just going to throw a wrench into everything. So, all right. So before we jump into playoff picture stuff, let's talk about last week's pick results. Jake finished with a record of 6-10. I finished with a record of 11-5. We both hit our locks. Jake's lock was Baltimore. My lock was the Rams. Total records for us now. Jake is sitting at 105, 115, and 4, and I am sitting at 111, 109, and 4. So both right there in the mix, especially for picking these games on Tuesday. We say it a lot, but it's not easy being able to predict a lot of the things that happen, and especially as we get closer to the end of the season here. We are very, very close to living out above 500, which is what I think our goal was here, especially considering picking on Tuesdays. So
yeah, I'm glad my my logs have been doing good because just a few weeks ago I was so happy to finally be over 500, and now here I am 10 games below again.
Well, it's
real nice.
You can flip it real quick though. That's how it works. So, all right, let's jump into just a quick look at the playoff pictures here. So, we're going to talk about the AFC playoff picture first. Standings as they sit right now, we have Baltimore is in the number 1 spot, and they are going to get the first round bye. They're currently sitting at 11-3. They have clinched a playoff position. Miami is currently sitting at 2 at 10-4. Kansas City Chiefs are sitting at 3 at 9-5. Jacksonville is currently sitting at 4 at 8-6. That spot is very much still up in the air. At the 5 spot, we've got the Cleveland Browns at 9-5. 6, the Cincinnati Bengals at 8-6. I don't think a lot of people thought that was going to happen after Burrow went down, but they've been playing really well as of late. And in the 7th spot, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who are also at 8-6, but could very easily slide into that 4 spot. So that's the current positions that we have for the AFC playoff picture. Still in the hunt, we've got a few teams, though. We've got the Houston Texans at 8-6, the Buffalo Bills at 8-6, the Steelers at 7-7, and the Broncos at 7-7. So taking a look at some of these games that could potentially have an impact, the Baltimore at San Francisco game, Dallas at Miami, Cleveland at Houston, and Cincinnati at Pittsburgh can all have some pretty potentially heavy playoff implications. What are you thinking about where this is all seated at right now? And of those teams that are in the hunt, which one do you think may be able to sneak up into one of these playoff positions?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is I think Cleveland's going to be good enough to get one of these spots. Cincinnati's kind of the dangerous one, I feel like. And then that Colts Jacksonville thing's kind of interesting too. In the hunt, I'm not too big. I'd have to look and see who exactly they're playing. I know Cincinnati does play Pittsburgh. I'm not sure who Denver plays, but I'm not too big really on Pittsburgh or Denver. I think the question is CJ Stroud coming back for Houston and what they can do the last few weeks. And then Buffalo, I mean, ever since Ken Dorsey's been out, it's been a little bit of a different offense for Buffalo. So I don't know. I'm one of the doubters of Buffalo, but I have liked what I've seen the last few weeks. They could potentially end up getting in this. Them and Cincinnati, the 2 teams I'd kind of ruled out. So things are interesting, though. Obviously, I don't really want to go in schedule by schedule of every team, but I think Houston with Stroud coming back and Buffalo would be the 2 I'd watch. Pittsburgh and Denver, I'm kind of out on at this point.
Yeah, just to give you a quick breakdown here, Houston this week is going to be playing at home against the Browns. We've got Buffalo. They are playing. Let's see here. We got all these teams playing at once. It's
I
hard to
think
find
Buffalo
where the
plays
team's
the
at.
Chargers, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, they're playing the Chargers, and that's in LA. Not that that makes a difference.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh. We just talked about them where the Steelers are at. They're playing at home against Cincinnati, and then the Broncos are back in Denver, and they are playing New England. Which New England, the Jets, and the Titans are the three teams right now that are officially eliminated from playoff contention. So Denver seems to have the easiest game this week of all the teams that are in the hunt, but they're not set up as well as potentially a team like Houston or Pittsburgh from a standpoint of the division being able to potentially sneak in there. So
I think Buffalo's game against the Chargers is a pretty easy win too, though. Buffalo might end up sneaking their way in.
yeah,
Obviously, we'll talk about the rest of their schedule later, but that seems like the team that might sneak in.
yeah. So if that's the case, and Buffalo ends up being the one to sneak in, then that means that one of those bottom four teams, Jacksonville, Cleveland, Cincinnati, or Indianapolis, is not going to be in it. Indianapolis is playing Atlanta this week in Atlanta. I think that's a game that they could very easily win. We already talked about who Cleveland's playing. Cleveland's playing Houston. So I think that it has the potential to have the biggest impact on these teams that are trying to sneak into the playoffs. And then you've got Jacksonville, which Jacksonville, man, they've really been skidding here as of late, and they're playing Tampa in Tampa, and that offense has looked
And
serviceable the past couple weeks.
I think Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol too. So
He is, and he has a chance of not playing. So that doesn't bode well for them either.
So I did pull up Buffalo. So they're at the Chargers, home against the Patriots, and then at the Dolphins. So I think they definitely win the next two. And I'm not saying they couldn't beat the Dolphins in that last game. So I kind of am liking Buffalo to end up making the playoffs here.
Yeah, they looked good on Sunday against Dallas. There's no lie about that. Josh Allen didn't have a particularly good game, but James Cook ran all over the field. I talked to the game was difficult for me to watch anyway because we got a basically hurricane weather here on Sunday and it knocked our power out for a bit. So I had to watch on my phone, but the game really wasn't worth watching. That Cowboys game, man, like Josh Allen did not particularly look that good, but they didn't need to do anything but hand off the ball, and they just kept doing all these off tackle traps with James Cook, and they were just running all over the place. I know we had a lot of guys that were sick, but that's no excuse. Like, I mean, it is what it is. The guys weren't feeling good, and I think that definitely had an impact. But you still have to win games, especially as we're trying to close out the year. And Philly has opened the window for us to be able to potentially get into the division. So let's jump into the NFC side of things. Right now, as it stands, the San Francisco 49ers are sitting in the one spot. They would get the first round bye. They're sitting at 11-3. They have a huge game this week against the Ravens. Dallas is currently sitting in the 2 spot at 10-4. The Lions are sitting in the 3 spot. They are also 10-4. And then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 7-7, but they are sitting in the 4 spot because they own the NFC South right now. In the 5 spot are the Philadelphia Eagles at 10-4, and then we have 2 more 7-7 teams: the Minnesota Vikings at 6 and the Los Angeles Rams at 7. So Niners, Cowboys, Lions, Bucks, Eagles, Vikings, and Rams round out the top 7 for the NFC. We do have multiple teams that are still in the hunt. The Seattle Seahawks, New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, and Green Bay Packers are all potentially in the hunt for a playoff push. The Carolina Panthers, Arizona Cardinals, and Washington Commanders are the 3 teams that have been eliminated. Some big games that could have playoff potential implications here. New Orleans is at the Rams. Detroit is at Minnesota. And then obviously we've talked about this a couple times already. Baltimore at San Francisco. What are your thoughts on where we're seated at right now? And if you have any of these teams that are in the hunt that may be able to sneak in?
The only one really I could see in the hunt maybe getting in, and again, this is something I would need to see the schedule, but Seattle would be the one. I think the Lions are going to handle the Vikings and probably knock them down. I think the Rams will beat the Saints this week, so that should kind of solidify them, maybe, and bump them up to 6.
Seattle so Seattle is playing at Tennessee on Sunday, and then they have the Steelers in Seattle, and then they go to Arizona as the last game of their season. So
they should be 3-0.
Those should be 3-0. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think the Rams in Seattle might be the two there.
So with that being said, then let's play a little crystal ball game here. We've got, let's say everything stays the same with the top 4 or top 5, so to speak. And then we have the Rams and the Seahawks coming in. I don't know who would own the tiebreaker for the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, but I think
the
it's
Rams
the
do
Rams.
because they have the same record right now. And the
Okay.
Rams are ahead of them.
Okay. So in that case, it would be Niners, Cowboys, Lions, Bucks, Eagles, Rams, Seahawks, which would give the Cowboys a home game against Seattle. We saw what happened there a few weeks ago. That was a tight game. We'd have Detroit at home against the Rams, which we talked about this a little bit last week. That's the team of all these lower end wildcard teams. That's the team that I do not want to play first because the Rams offense has looked really, really good. And then we have Tampa Bay would be going up against Philadelphia, and that would be a home game in Tampa Bay. That's crazy, man. I mean, right now as it sits, the Rams would be playing the Cowboys, and again, that's the team that I don't want to play. The only benefit there is that I really, really hope we can somehow hold on to the NFC East so we can play at home because we are not playing the same as we are on the road. So,
well, and that's where things get interesting with the reseeding of the second round. Also, is if let's see if Dallas were to swing down and be the 5, and you would assume the Lions, I guess the Bucks could potentially. Well, Dallas would be beating the Bucks then. So, yeah, essentially you would have Dallas and San Francisco for San Francisco's first home game. That would be dangerous. That's not exactly how you would want the playoffs to go.
No, it is not, which is why we need to win games. And it starts with this week in Miami, which is not going to be an easy one. So, all things considered, it's really interesting. There's a large amount of teams that are not eliminated from the playoff contention right now. Adding that additional week into the schedule, I think opens things up. So that makes things a little bit more interesting. So yeah, let's jump right into some week 16 stuff here. All right. Our first matchup features the 7-7 New Orleans Saints against the 7-7 Los Angeles Rams, 8:20 p.m. on Thursday at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The Saints are coming off a 24-6 win against the Giants last week, while the Rams beat the Commanders 28-20. Both teams are still in the playoff race and need to get a W to keep on pace for their playoff push. New Orleans sits second in the NFC South off a tiebreaker with the Bucks, while the Rams hold second place by half a game over the Seahawks in the NFC West. The Rams are favored by 4.
Yeah, the Rams pretty much killed this game, or killed Washington last week. They in the fourth quarter they let them come back, and really that game, the score was nowhere near what that game was. The Rams pretty much dominated that game. I think they can do the same thing again on the short week. They are at home, and this is one of those games again where I think there will be at least an equal number of Rams fans. So it'll be a halfway home game, not like the typical Rams games. Jameis still isn't playing for the Saints, so I'm still keeping my rule, but I probably wouldn't need it in this case anyway. So I am going to take the Rams to cover the 4.5.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams in this one as well. They've won 4 out of the last 5, and honestly, they should be on a 5-game streak because that Ravens game that went into overtime, they should have won that game. I really like how good the Rams look right now. Crossing my fingers again that Dallas doesn't get them in the first round. Before we move on to the next game, very quickly here, Workman sent me a link to a throw that Stafford threw last week that was just unbelievably ridiculous.
Yep.
5-step drop, does a shoulder fake to the left, and then no look passes right down the middle on a slant and hits the dude right in the numbers. Matt Stafford, man,
it's every week.
He's going to go down in history as one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history, in my opinion. It's crazy what he does from week to week, especially as damaged as he always is, because he is always just getting the hell beat out of him.
Yeah, last week the offensive line was pretty much healthy. Haverstein's actually supposed to be back this week, so the Rams O-line's looking good. But yeah, with the Stafford thing, Aaron Rodgers probably 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, in one of his interviews on Pat McAfee, they were talking about Mahomes and how Mahomes does the no-look pass, and Rodgers like kind of shut him down, and he was like, no. He was like, no one talks about it, but no one threw the no-look pass like Stafford. And Stafford's done it for a long time. And Mahomes gets all the credit, and Stafford's been doing it and better even. Stafford, there will never be, if you go back and watch the Super Bowl they won, that no-look pass he threw in the Super Bowl to Cooper Kupp was one of the nastiest passes in for situation, like Jesus, like no one is going to do that ever again. He's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm a big fan of his, but he'll never get the credit he deserves.
I agree. All right. Next up, we have the 8-6 Cincinnati Bengals against the 7-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. 4:30 p.m. on Saturday at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. An AFC North divisional matchup. The Bengals beat the Vikings in overtime last week, 27-24, while the Steelers lost to the Colts by 17 last Saturday. Steelers safety DeMonte Casey has been suspended for the remainder of the year after a big hit on Colts receiver Michael Pittman. That is his 6th flag of the season for unnecessary roughness, so he is suspended for the rest of the year. The Bengals, meanwhile, have won 3 in a row with backup QB Jake Browning and are climbing up the standings at the right time of the year. These teams both currently sit 3-4 in the AFC North, and Cincy is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, and I believe Pittsburgh is named Mason Rudolph the starter also, which is interesting.
Yep.
I just mentioned it a few minutes ago. I'm kind of out on Pittsburgh. I do like Cincinnati here. I don't know. I don't think Mason Rudolph. This is not really the situation that I would want him playing, to be honest. But Pittsburgh's kind of dead at this point. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs anyway. So I do like Cincinnati, even though I think this game is going to be good. I mean, you got a road division game here, so you never know what's going to happen. But Browning's been kind of a dog in there, so I like it.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm taking Cincy. Browning seems to be improving as he gets more playing time under his belt. Steelers marching out Mason Rudolph here. Bengals should be able to get a 3-point win at least, so I'm going to take Cincy as well. Next, we have the 8-6 Buffalo Bills against the 5-9 LA Chargers, 8 p.m. on Saturday at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Buffalo is coming off a big win Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys and is fighting for a wild card spot, while the Chargers season is all but over after getting embarrassed by the Raiders last Thursday, 63-21. And then subsequently finally firing Brandon Staley and GM Tom Telesco the next day. Buffalo sits 2 games back from the Dolphins for the lead in the AFC East, while the Chargers are in last place in the AFC West. Buffalo is favored by 11.5.
Yeah, so sometimes we talk about that first game after a coach is fired. That's kind of the interesting play here. The thing is, this will be a Buffalo home game in LA. This will be a Buffalo crowd. You got to like what they've done the last 2 weeks against good teams, Chiefs and Cowboys. So I think Buffalo keeps it rolling here. 10.5 is kind of large, but I think Buffalo's going to cover, or 11.5. Sorry.
11.5. Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo here as well. They've been playing well the past few weeks. You just said this LA team is in shambles right now. I understand teams get a boost with the interim head coach, but that interim head coach is not going to be able to overcome all the injuries they've been dealing with. And that defense is obviously not in a good place right now. So Buffalo should be able to come in and get a win by 2 touchdowns, I would think. So I'm going to take Buffalo. Next up, we have the 8-6 Indianapolis Colts against the 6-8 Atlanta Falcons, 1 p.m. on Sunday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Indy got a 17-point win over the Steelers on Sunday, while the Falcons lost to the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte on Sunday 7-9. The Colts are fighting for playoff positioning with the Jags and the Texans, while the Falcons have lost their last 2 and are losing ground on both the Bucs and the Saints. Indy sits second in the AFC South, while Atlanta sits third in the NFC South. The Colts are favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I like what the Colts have been doing. I'm going to stick with Coach Steichen. Atlanta's kind of, I don't know, they've kind of fallen apart in my eyes. Like, I hope that they keep R.D. Smith as their coach. I do like him. I don't want to see him get fired, but I just don't like what's been happening in Atlanta. So I'm going to take the Colts.
Yep, I'm going with Indy as well. I know Atlanta plays much better at home, but the Colts are 5-2 on the road this year. They're playing indoors, so it should be a familiar stadium. Jonathan Taylor should also be back, so I see the Colts here getting the job done in Atlanta this week, so I'll take Indy. Next, we have the 6-8 Green Bay Packers versus the 2-12 Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. on Sunday at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. The Packers are coming off a 14-point loss at home against Tampa Bay, while the Panthers managed to find a win at home last week against the Falcons. The Packers have been up and down all year, but have lost their last 2, removing them currently from the playoff picture, while the Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention and have the second worst point differential in the league at -142. Green Bay sits third in the NFC North, 1 game behind Minnesota, while the Panthers are last in the NFC South. Green Bay is favored by 4.5.
Yeah, surprising win last week for Carolina. Finally got a win in front of about the same amount of people that are currently on this podcast, too. It was about the same amount of people that were in that stadium.
Being generous.
Yeah. This one is kind of tough for me though, because I think Green Bay is I think they've got some issues going on there. Jesus. You would have to assume that they win this game by 6 or 7. So I am going to go with the Packers, but it's not going to surprise me if Carolina sneaks in and wins this one.
Yeah, all things considered, I'm guessing this is probably going to be a home away from home game for Green Bay because Carolina's fans understandably are not showing up and Green Bay has fans all over the place. Carolina did pull out that win last week against a division opponent, but the Packers are a different story. They aren't nearly as one-dimensional with the ball and offense as the Atlanta team is, so I'm going to take Green Bay as well. Next up are the 9-5 Cleveland Browns against the 8-6 Houston Texans. 1 p.m. on Sunday at NRG Stadium in Houston. The Browns are coming off a 3-point win at home against the Bears, while the Texans return home after getting an overtime win against the Texans in Nashville. Or no, who did they get the win? A win over the Titans, not the Texans. Jesus. Both teams are well within the playoff picture and need to keep stacking up W's. Cleveland currently sits second in the AFC North, while the Texans sit third in the AFC South, but are tied by record with both the Jags and the Colts. Houston is favored by 2.5 at home.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Schwartz if Stroud's back. Even so, Schwartz against a rookie quarterback, I like. I'm going to take Schwartz and the Browns.
Yeah, this was probably the toughest pick of the week for me. Cleveland's been playing some really inspired football with Flacco returning to glory, but Houston does play better at home. Cleveland has not shown up on the road. They're 2-4 on the road versus 7-1 at home this year. Stroud should also be back. So I'm going to take Houston here to keep pace with Indy for one more week and get the W. So I'm going to take Houston. Next up, we have the 10-4 Detroit Lions going up against the 7-7 Minnesota Vikings in an NFC North divisional matchup on Sunday at 1 p.m. in US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Detroit is coming off a 25-point win against the Broncos last Saturday, while the Vikings return home and look to bounce back from an overtime loss to the Bengals. A win for Detroit would lock up the NFC North for the first time since 1993 and give Ford Field a hosted playoff game. Minnesota, meanwhile, is well within the wildcard race in the NFC and needs to win to keep ahead of the Packers and several other NFC teams with similar records. These teams sit 1-2 in the NFC North, and Detroit is favored by 3.
For the first time in forever, the Lions are going to host a playoff game at Ford Field. The division's over this week. We clinched a division. Lions win and cover.
I like it. I'm taking MCDC and the boys here as well. That offense looked really good last week. Minnesota's dealing with a bunch of injuries and things like that on both sides of the ball. Look for the Lions to lock up the first of 2 matchups here in the next 3 weeks and lock up that home game.
There's some pretty crazy things going on with the Lions. So I mean, sorry. So not only are their potential playoff game at home, the whole offensive line was back last week. CJGJ is going to be back soon. James Houston's going to be back soon. Aleem McNeil is going to be back soon. This is the perfect time for this team to get healthy. And with the finally having the offensive line it showed last week, the Lions potentially might have 2,000-yard rushers. That shows you MCDC right there, because that's insane. It would never happen. It's absolutely beautiful, the changes he's brought to Ford Field and Detroit and the Lions. It's a whole different world from what everyone's used to. The thought that in just a few weeks I'm going to watch the Lions play a home playoff game is insane. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Detroit Lions fan by proxy just because of growing up with you and going to all the Lions games that we went to, but it's refreshing to see that fan base, because I know like Detroit Lions fans have, a lot of them are like long-time fans and they've been grinding with this team. And year after year, it's a struggle, and they finally have a solid team to be able to go up against with a tremendous head coach. Like, a lot of things are going right in Detroit right now.
And that's one thing I want to bring up. So Ford Field, I've been at Ford Field with some of the worst teams the worst team in NFL history. They were 0-16. That place was still full and was still mostly Lions fans. That stadium was rarely ever taken over. The only game I ever remember where there were a lot of road fans was when they played Philly with T.O. That was the only game I ever remember a huge turnout from the other team. So I think that speaks a lot of volumes with what you just said with Lions fans and how they deserve. I mean, people have been going to these games forever. We went through the Matt Millen era, for Christ's sake, with the Millen Man March and everyone wanting his ass out. Fire Millen chants. People thought Fire Canada chants were bad. They don't remember. There was no social media during the Fire Millen time.
Yeah, I guarantee you there weren't a bunch of homeless people standing outside of
yeah, right.
Acrisure Stadium chanting Fire Millen, but there were in Detroit. We saw it.
Yeah, I mean and this was pre-social media. Like it's just a whole different world now. Like to think of all of that going on, and the fans were always there. Like it's never been what you see. Like what Carolina showed last week was a disgrace to football. Like there were maybe 40 people at that game. I don't know. It's just crazy. And then to see Arrowhead was taken over by Lions fans. Lambeau was taken over by Lions fans. Where were we at just a few weeks ago? There was another one just a few weeks ago. Tampa. Lions fans took over. Almost every road game this year, Lions fans have taken over the stadium. So it's just a crazy thing to see, and it's awesome. It's hopefully that this keeps up. It's such a surprise and such a nice change.
Yep. Well, next week's going to be interesting for sure.
It is a big one. Will be a big one. It's going
to be a big one. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next, we have the 4-10 Washington Commanders meeting the 5-9 New York Jets Sunday at 1 p.m. at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Both teams are coming off of losses as the Commanders lost to the Rams and the Jets put up a goose egg against the Dolphins last week. With both of these teams eliminated from the playoffs, bragging rights and draft positioning are about the only things on the line here. The Commanders sit last in the NFC East, while the Jets sit third in the AFC East. Jets are favored here by 3, and as if anybody thought this could potentially happen, Aaron Rodgers has come out and said he is not returning this season. So we are going to see Zach Wilson, if he's cleared from is he in concussion protocol right now? I saw a video today from his mom basically saying that he lied to the doctor so he could get back on the field. So I don't know if
he didn't finish the game. So I don't know what the situation is with quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's going to be any potential disciplinary action for him lying to the doctors, or if they're going to be able to get him on that, because I know how the NFL is about that kind of thing. So yeah, all things considered, the Jets are favored by 3 at home.
This is a god awful game. I'm just going to take points, so I will take Washington plus the 3. We are Commanders.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this. Another tough one to pick. I'm going to lean into the Jets just because they're the home team here, and I think the defense is enough. Washington struggled the past couple weeks. And hopefully one of these teams looking for a head coach needs to go get Eric Bieniemy. Go get him. This guy's well deserving of a head coaching position.
Washington should just hire him. He's already there.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like somebody needs to try to go grab him, because I'm surprised the Commanders haven't just let Rivera go already, considering where the season's gone, especially if they would be able to just go ahead and lock up Bieniemy before he starts taking interviews.
Yeah, I think that they've basically all but said they're not going to fire him during the season, but he is getting fired. So yeah, I just don't understand why keep him then. But
yeah, I don't get it either. But I am going to take the Jets in this one. Next, we have the 7-7 Seattle Seahawks against the 5-9 Tennessee Titans, 1 p.m. on Sunday at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. The Seahawks are coming off a big win in Seattle against the Eagles last night, while the Titans lost in overtime last week to the Texans at home. The Seahawks still have an outside chance of making the playoffs, while the Titans are mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. Seattle sits third in the NFC West, while the Titans sit last in the AFC South. Seattle is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, you got Seattle on a short week, coming off a huge win, playing an early game in Tennessee. But I still like them. Give me Seattle minus 2.5.
Oh, man, that was a teaser there. Woo! I'm going to take Seattle here as well. Only one of these teams is in playoff contention. I think that matters. Levis is also nurturing an injury that should allow the Seahawks to key in on Derrick Henry. So I'm going to take the Seahawks here minus the points. Next, we have the 8-6 Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the 7-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4 p.m. on Sunday at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. Jacksonville has now lost 3 straight after losing by 16 at home on Sunday night to the Ravens, and potentially could be without Trevor Lawrence, while Tampa returns home after getting a W in Lambeau against the Packers. Another 2 teams in playoff contention, and with their season on the line, Jacksonville is currently in a 3-way tie with Indy and Houston, but do sit in first place in the AFC South based on tiebreakers, while the Bucs also sit in first place in the NFC South, but are tied with the Saints. Tampa is favored by 1.5.
This one is big. I think I'm going with Bake. Give me the Bucks minus the 1.5. I with Trevor up in the air, and the Bucks offense has been nasty. Jacksonville, like I've talked about the last few weeks, they've kind of been all over the place. So I do like the Bucks here.
Yep. This is another tough one, but I am going to take Tampa Bay here at home as well. Tampa's offense, as you just said, has looked a lot better as of late. Now with Lawrence dealing with this concussion, may miss the game. I just don't see Jacksonville stopping the skid, which is crazy to think about because when we came into the season, virtually everybody was extremely confident that Jacksonville was going to cakewalk through the AFC South.
Yep.
That did not happen. And that's despite injuries on a number of teams in the AFC South. So it's been interesting. But yeah, I'm going to take Tampa.
They might have been the most favored team to win their division too. And now, I mean, I would be shocked if they end up winning this division, to be honest. I actually think it might be the Colts to lose.
Yeah, and looking at Jacksonville's schedule for the rest of the year, we have hang on just 1 second, let me get them pulled up here. So obviously they are playing in Tampa, and then here's the kicker. They play Carolina in Jacksonville on New Year's Eve, and then they play the Titans at home, or Titans in Tennessee, excuse me, on January 7th.
See, I think Tennessee can beat them though. Now Carolina, I think they should be able to handle that one, but I think they could lose at Tampa, and I think they could lose at Tennessee. Like those are, I think they could go 1-2.
Yeah, so if they're at 8-6 right now, that would put them at 9-8.
Yeah,
that's not going to be enough to beat Indy, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
So we'll see what happens. All right. Next, we have the 3-11 Arizona Cardinals matching up against the 5-9 Chicago Bears. 4:25 on Sunday at Soldier Field in Chicago. Arizona lost to the Niners last week, while the Bears lost to the Browns in Cleveland. Arizona, of course, has been eliminated from playoff contention and sits last in the NFC West, while the Bears would need everything to go right to make the playoffs and currently sit in last in the NFC North. Chicago is favored by 4.5.
This is an interesting matchup. Two teams with two very fun quarterbacks to watch. They're good that no team seems to want. So I don't know. I'm gonna take the Bears to cover this. I don't know why. I watched Arizona a little bit last week, and they actually, for like 10 minutes, played a decent game with the 49ers, and then the 49ers just destroyed them. But Fields has been playing pretty well. 4.5 seems like a lot for this game, though. This seems like a 3-point game, but I am going to go with the Bears.
Yeah, funny that you say that. I literally have a note here that this is probably going to end up being a 3-point win, but I'm going to take the Bears anyway.
Yeah,
I think the weather may give Chicago a slight advantage, although it's going to be seasonably warm there. It's supposed to be 51 degrees on Sunday, which is warmer than what it typically is for Chicago this time of year. So
yeah,
looks like it's going to be clear weather. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to take Fields and the Bears to get a win at home here. All right, next up, a matchup of 10-4 squads as the Dallas Cowboys face the Miami Dolphins. 4:25 on Sunday at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. Dallas looks to shake off an ugly loss at the hands of the Bills in Buffalo on Sunday, where the Dolphins are coming off a 30-point shutout against the Jets and have only lost once at home all season. Dallas has already secured a playoff spot, but is still jostling for positioning, currently second in the NFC East and in the NFC Conference, while the Dolphins will lock up the AFC East with a win and a Buffalo loss. Miami is favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I think Mike McDaniel will study quite a bit on what Buffalo did to Dallas last week. Obviously, he's a big run game guy, but then they also have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I think I'm going to have to go Miami here. I like them in this game. I think I would have liked them a little bit more if Dallas won last week, because it's kind of hard to see Dallas losing back-to-back, but I do think Miami will get this one and cover the 1.5.
Yeah. This is hard. I'm leaning towards picking Miami. They've only lost one at home. Dallas has yet to win a game as the road underdog this year. The team's going to be healthier. Losing 2 in a row again is something that I don't want to go up against. And a lot of those guys were sick for the Buffalo game, which we talked about. But even with this being a warmer weather game, I'm nervous because we just saw what happened with James Cook, and Miami's run game is better than Buffalo's. And we also run a man scheme, which does not bode well when you're going up against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't know if Tyreek Hill is going to play or not, but Waddle is almost as dangerous as Tyreek is. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because it's a 1.5 point spread, but I'm gonna pick Miami here to get this win. I hope I'm wrong, obviously, as a Cowboys fan, but it's
I know
just
that's like when I picked Denver last week.
yeah,
Same
yeah.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
just it's hard. It's hard, man. And Dallas is a better football team than what they showed last week against Buffalo, but I think there was just a combination of, Hankins was out. We had guys that were sick. Buffalo found a niche to break down our run defense, and they leaned into it. They're like, "Fucking stop us, and we'll stop it." And we couldn't stop them all game.
Yep.
Um, One thing I am getting tired of is I understand why the Cowboys players are frustrated because we are dealing with a lot. We're the most penalized team in football right now, and if you watch our team on defense, there is a lot of penalties that are not getting called in our favor that should be. Micah Parsons is getting held almost every play. I talk about it a lot. What I don't like to hear is them bitching about it every game or after every game. Just go out and play. Micah Parsons has a podcast. He calls it out a lot. I get it to an extent, but at the end of the day, you have to go out there and win games and make sure that any one potential call from a referee is not going to matter because we're up by 14 or whatever. So I I don't want Miami to win. Obviously, I am going to take Miami in this one to cover minus the 1.5. But I do hope that I am wrong, and that is a loss on my record coming next Tuesday.
Yeah, and one thing with what you said, I would have to assume Tyreek plays. They showed him warming up last week, and when they showed him warming up, I was like, "Oh, he's playing." Like there was nothing that looked like he shouldn't have played. I don't know if they were just like, "Hey, let's play it safe. We don't need him this game or what." But I'm glad he didn't play because he that was the extra game with the new 18 game schedule for him to break Calvin's record. So I'm glad that we at least got it back down to the same amount of games. That way, if he does break Calvin's record, it's at least fair.
Yeah.
Because that extra game is nonsense. I don't think you should count that in records. It's so stupid. But I'm really hoping he doesn't break Calvin's record. So I'm hoping that my guy from Fresno maybe breaks his leg or something. That's something good. So
Yeah, well, I don't know if I want anybody's leg to get broken, but hopefully Deron Bland can get him locked down somehow. Dan Quinn's going to have to do something about this man scheme because this is not going to work against the speed. And Raheem Mostert's a better running back, in my opinion, than James Cook.
Well,
so that
we'll see.
also
And
concerning.
and that's where I'm interested in our game. I know it's a week away, but I mean, it's going to be tough to man us up with our healthy O line with Gibbs and Montgomery. Like I don't. I mean, Laporte.
Yeah,
is
you guys don't
dominating.
have a spell back.
No.
That's the other thing that we're
Yeah.
missing. Like people shit on Zeke a lot, but Zeke was consistent.
Yeah, he
Like,
was needed.
I am one of the components. Taxis, you can both contest to this. Like I have been a Zeke defender. He is good for 3 yards when you need 3 yards. That dude has
Yep.
no problem putting his helmet down and running through guys, and we do not have that right now. Rico Dowdle is a good running back, but he doesn't have that juice when you need that push. And Tony Pollard, by all accounts, I'm glad that we didn't give him the contract that he was looking for, because if this is an example of what we're going to look at, then he was asking for way too much money. He's not performing
Right.
to the point that he was last year. So it's concerning. This is going to be 3 games in a row where we're going up against teams that have really, really strong run games. And Dallas is going to have to figure it out because we're going to be in the playoffs, but another first round exit is.
Yeah, and if it does go how we just said, well, clearly they would play a first round game if they were the 5, but if they have to go play the 49ers with the way that they run the ball, like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm not one that's big into these dumbass stats like this, but their grass record is horrendous. And San Francisco is one of the few teams in the playoffs that play on grass. So that's one of those nonsense things, but still like, I don't know.
Yeah, San Francisco's they have a mental hold on Dallas. That's the other thing that concerns me. I just, yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of reasons why Dallas could get into the playoffs and make some noise, but it's going to require at least one home playoff game, I think. And
Well, and I think the thing that I think they could benefit is if the Lions end up boosting up to one of the top seeds, because I think they match up well. I think that's a very good game, and obviously we're going to play next week, and whoever wins next week, I don't think really matters when it comes to playing in the playoffs either. But
Yeah.
I feel like they need to kind of play the Lions because I don't know. I do think they could beat Philly. If it's in Philly though, which it would be if Philly won the division, then I think it gets a little bit more skeptical there too. But really, I think Dallas's path is the Lions in the second round.
Yeah. My my only thing with Philadelphia is they have Matt Patricia calling plays now for the defensive.
Yeah, and look what
which
happened last night. Yeah, he's a disaster. And what I find very interesting is when his dumbass came to Detroit, he kicked Darius Slay out, and Darius Slay was our best player. I love Darius Slay. Now Slay has to come back from injury, and that buffoon has to be his D coordinator again. So I'm real interested in seeing how that plays out because Slay does not like him, and it's obvious, like he's stated. And I don't know. I'm real interested to see how that dynamic goes because they miss Slay a lot.
Yeah. Yep. There's some trouble in Philly right now, so we'll see how it shakes out as we hit the rest of the year. All right. Next up, we have the 3-11 New England Patriots against the 7-7 Denver Broncos. 8:25 p.m. on Sunday at Empower Field at Mile High in Denver. The Patriots are coming off a 10-point loss at home to the Chiefs, while the Broncos lost by 25 to the Detroit Lions last Saturday. The Patriots are eliminated from playoffs, and sources indicate they do plan on moving on from Bill Belichick after this season, while the Broncos are still fighting for playoff hopes after turning their season around midway through the year under first-year head coach Sean Payton. The Patriots are last in the AFC East, while the Broncos are 2 games behind the Chiefs for first in the AFC West. Denver is favored by 6.
Yeah, it was beautiful to watch the Lions beat the shit out of Denver last week. I do think they're going to go home and rebound a little bit in this one, so I do like Denver to get the cover here.
Yep, I'm taking Denver as well for no other reason than it's a home primetime game for Denver. Big Bill will attack the Denver on the ground, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get the W, so I'm going to take Denver as well. We have a triple header on Christmas Day, kicking off with an AFC West matchup as the 6-8 Las Vegas Raiders go up against the 9-5 Kansas City Chiefs, 1 p.m. Monday at Arrowhead in Kansas City. The Chiefs are coming off a 10-point win against the Patriots on Sunday, while the Raiders just put up 63 on the Chargers last Thursday. Neither team has clinched a playoff spot yet, and although the Chiefs are 3 games ahead of the Raiders for first in the division, Vegas still isn't mathematically eliminated from the playoffs as of now. Significant spread in this one, though. KC is favored by 10.
Yeah. Jesus. Chiefs kind of sleptwalking in New England last week. I like them returning home. And Mahomes just has to be ready to see this team roll at some point. And I think this might be, they need to kind of kickstart it now to get going into the playoffs. I do like the Chiefs to cover this at home.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs at home as well. Big division matchup for them on Christmas. Their offense looked a little more composed last week. The Raiders are likely going to have a letdown game after putting up 63 last week against the Chargers. Pacheco should also be back. So all of those things, I'm pointing towards Kansas City to cover here. So I will take the Chiefs. Next of our Christmas Day games is an NFC East showdown. The 5-9 New York Giants meet the 10-4 Philadelphia Eagles, 4:25 p.m. Monday at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. The Giants are coming off an 18-point loss to the Saints on Sunday, while the Eagles lost their third in a row to Seattle last night. The Giants are all but eliminated from the playoffs and have the worst point differential in the NFL at -149, while the Eagles have been losing ground for positioning at the top of the NFC. Philly and New York sit 1-3 in the NFC East. Philly is favored by 10.5.
Yeah, Mr. Cutlets didn't quite get it done last week in New Orleans. So I think Philly has to, like, kind of what I just said with Kansas City, like something has to click and this team has to get it going into the playoffs, especially they're about to lose home field. So I think you just have to see a good performance here. So I like Philly to come out and get the cover.
Yeah, I'm taking Philly here too. It's a short week, but the Giants are one of only 2 teams in the league that have scored less than 200 points this year while having statistically the worst defense in the league. Philly has to win this game, and I think they do. So I'm going to take Philly here.
It's actually a normal week. It's Monday to Monday.
I guess that's true, Monday to Monday. Okay. All right. Last game here, our final Christmas Day game is a big one and a potential Super Bowl matchup preview. The 11-3 Baltimore Ravens against the 11-3 San Francisco 49ers, 8:25 p.m. at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. The 2 top teams in the NFL, this matchup has clear potential playoff implications as the losing team may slip from the number 1 spot in their conference with a loss, depending on how things shake out this week. Baltimore sits atop the AFC North by 2 games, while the Niners are currently the only team in the NFL that have secured their division. Big matchup here. San Francisco is favored by 5.5.
Yeah, I wish this game was in Baltimore. The fact that it's in San Francisco, I like the Niners to get the win in the cover here, but I'm very excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, this should be a fun one to watch. I'm doing the exact same thing here. I'm going to give San Fran the nod to get the W as the home team, but I think Baltimore is going to keep it close enough to cover. I'll damn.
I know it's tough.
I'm going to take San Francisco. I am going to take San Francisco. I think it's going to be really close. I would not be surprised if Baltimore keeps this closer than 5.5, but I am going to take San Fran. All right. We do not have any bye week teams, obviously, as we enter the end of the season here. So we are going to move right into our locks. I am 12-2 in locks this year. Workman is 10-4. Jake, who are you locking in on this week?
So I've got a few I like. I think I'm going to take the Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs.
All right. I am going to lock in on Indy over Atlanta. With Taylor back and the way Indy's been playing on the road, they should be able to take care of a 2-point spread against a one-dimensional team in the Falcons. So lock me in on the Colts over Atlanta.
Let's hope I can get closer to 500 this week.
Yeah, let's hope. You're doing well in your locks. So there's something there.
That's what we say. Bet the locks.
That's right. Bet the locks. All right, guys. That is it for us for week 16. Jake, you got any other thoughts you want to share before we sign off here?
No, not really. Other than for the first time in my life where I have memory, the Lions are a win away Sunday from clinching the division. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, we hopefully will be signing in on Tuesday to celebrate a Detroit Lions victory and home playoff game. So let's hope we're celebrating the Lions and also celebrating me being wrong for the Dallas-Miami game.
And still holding out hope. I'm still rooting for the Rams too. I want to see Stafford in the playoffs. I don't really want to see Rams-Lions, even though that's something I've talked about since the season preview. Well, what a crazy thing that would be. But I'm really hoping they both get in, and I'd really prefer them not to play each other. But if it is what it is, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But really just want to see Stafford back in the playoffs because they kind of were a written off team earlier this year. It's awesome what they've been doing. Yeah,
absolutely. They're getting healthy at the right time. Kyron Williams is one of the more surprising running backs in the league this year. What I'm really concerned about is that Detroit run game, man, because with Monty and Gibbs both healthy, that they do not have a flex back. They have 2 premier running backs on that team, and that makes it very, very deadly to have to stop 2 RB1s the entire game. You get no spell back.
Well, and Laporta coming out and just being an absolute monster is huge because Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's already undefendable to begin with. And then you throw in the speed of Jameson Williams. Like it's very crazy to watch. It's wonderful, actually. It's like a Madden team.
Yeah, pretty much. I've been playing with them on Madden here recently. They're a fun one to play with. All right, guys. Thank you as always for listening. Like, follow, share. We're on all platforms: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that fun shit. So please like, share, subscribe, share with your friends. For the fine citizen, Mr. Jacob Workman, hopefully when we get back next Tuesday, you are a little bit past your hepatitis X.
I doubt it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we get, let's see, Workman back to being healthy, Lions in the playoffs with the home game, Workman back to being above 500. We both hit our locks, and the Cowboys get a win in Miami. If all of those things can happen,
we want the Rams to beat the Saints too.
The Rams to beat the Saints. If all those things can happen, we'll be popping confetti next Tuesday. So
it'd be absolutely incredible.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for listening as always, and we will see you guys
also
next week.
If anyone wants some hold on, Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference knowledge, make sure you check out the college episode that's dropping.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but yeah, for those of you guys who don't listen to our college podcast typically, With the bowl games coming up, we don't have as many teams or many games as we're talking about. So we've been playing a random conference guessing game with Workman here, where I'm picking a random football conference from D1A to whatever I can find and see how many of these mascots he can pick. And he did a hell of a lot better this week than he did last week. I think the hints were a little easier, so maybe I won't give you as many softballs next week, but it's been a fun and educational program here recently on the NCAA side. So,
well, yeah, and if people don't really like college football too much, or they don't really follow the portal or anything, definitely check out the episode. We went through about 600 guys in the portal and news from there too. So the transfer portal is really ramping up right now.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to be just as, if not more crazy next week, because we're very quickly running up against time here as far as the portal goes. It closes January 2nd. So.
Yep.
All right, guys. For Jacob Workman, I am Reese Downing. This is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Edition, Week 16. Thank you, guys. Cheers and happy gambling.
Eat 'em up, Lions. Eat 'em up.